All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, and I'm along with my coworker, Jordan Bianchi. We're motorsports writers for The Athletic. We are here in Las Vegas wrapping up the end of our F1 weekend. We're actually recording this before the race, so whatever happened in the race, we don't know. But,
There's no manhole covers come up, we're okay.
Well, so far so good after what we've seen with the first on-track action here. But you're listening to this maybe Monday morning, maybe Tuesday, something like that. And we wanted to be able to record a bonus episode, so to speak, while we were here together before we parted ways for the rest of the offseason, unless there's some court hearing or something that we need to be together for.
I fully expect we'll be doing more podcasts.
Okay,
well, that way.
No, I'm not saying it's the end of the podcast, but at least the in-person thing. We wanted to have something for you guys. And our sleep schedules have been so messed up with this whole thing.
How did you get back to your hotel last night?
Well, I walked the strip. I was walking the strip to see the viewing areas, and so I wrote at my hotel. So I was here. But then, I wake up, you're trying to stay up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. But then your body wakes you up at the normal time, and then you can't get back to sleep, at least for me.
Yeah.
So I've been getting like 4 hours of sleep a night, like in a row. And we still got some time to go here. So it's been a long week. But listen, we have a couple current topics to get to first, and then what we're going to do just to, maybe it'll be entertaining. Maybe this will totally flop. Jordan thinks it's going to flop. We're going to ask each other my 12 questions that I've been asking all the drivers all year on The Athletic, because later this week on The Athletic, I'm doing the best of the 12 questions, picking an answer, my favorite answer from each question all year long, and putting that together in one piece. So I thought we would ask each other these questions. Now, I wanted to do this last year. Jordan said no. He's finally convinced. I don't know. Why'd you say yes to this, Jordan?
Call me at a weak moment.
Oh, okay.
I just felt bad for everybody ganging up on you for how mean you are, so I thought,
Oh, okay.
Thought I'd throw you a bone.
Well, before we get to that, some news has happened. We're recording this again before the weekend starts. And so some news has just happened that's fresh to us, which is that Chris Gabehart will no longer be Denny Hamlin's crew chief. Chris Gale, Ty Gibbs' crew chief, is moving over to Hamlin, whereas Chris Gabehart is switching to Joe Gibbs Racing, competition director, overseeing all the teams. And there's a vacancy now for Ty Gibbs' crew chief, so we don't know who that's going to be yet. But this obviously comes as a surprise, probably both to everybody, and it seemed like Denny as well, judging from the comments we saw from the media availabilities. Other media members were posting in Charlotte where they're doing the NASCAR awards. Denny said he was very surprised. I saw a video from Alan Cavana where he walked in to a 6 p.m. meeting at JGR and was informed of this news. Pretty surprising, first of all, how it would even go down. You would think that Denny would have way more heads up or way more say at this point in his career with all he's sort of earned and done. For him to be blindsided, it sounds like is kind of he said it was a shock.
I was really shocked. When I heard the news, it was like, wow, okay. The relationship between Denny and Chris is phenomenal. A couple things. There's a lot to break down here, honestly. One, I went back last year to our anonymous poll we did with the playoff drivers, and I looked at it. 8 of the 16 drivers picked Chris Gabehart as the crew chief they wanted, which I thought was remarkable. The second best was Cliff Daniels at 5, so there's a little bit of gap there. Easily one of the most, if not the most respected and almost revered crew chiefs in the garage. Really smart at, knows how to build fast race cars. Great strategist, great motivator. Like, he is almost a perfect crew chief in a lot of ways. And when you think at where Denny Hamlin's at in his career, and I'm not calling Denny Hamlin old because we're the same age, but the reality is the reality, and he's 43, you don't have a lot of runway left on your career. You're kind of in a win-now mode, right? If you're in a stick-and-ball sports, you're like, we're all in now. Forget the salary cap or whatever else down the road. We need to win now. Knowing that, I can understand his frustration and his anger. It's like, I got the best crew chief in the garage. I know we didn't have maybe the best year as an organization, but we were pretty good. And we had a lot of things go against us last year out of our control. Like, I don't want to have to work and figure out a new crew chief and all of that goes into that. And maybe it works out, but maybe it doesn't, because I know what I got. And I don't got many years left, and I want to maximize it. And so there's that. And then there's the part you mentioned as well. You would think someone of that stature, the team leader, been there, he's a lifer, been there a long time, he deserves that respect, instead of just walking into a 6 o'clock meeting. It almost feels like a hit, out of a mom movie in a way. And I don't know the particulars of it, so I don't want to say anything that, I got to be careful with that. But from just what he said, it doesn't sound like the communication was there, and maybe that's how they wanted it. For Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole to put Chris Gabehart as a competition director, really smart move. They struggled last year, really in the second half of the year. The 20 team at Christopher Bell was the exception. We didn't have a lot of performance from all three of the other JGR cars really consistently throughout the year. They need to be better. And if you look at the role that Chris is going into, they really didn't have somebody kind of in that specific role, like that Chad Knaus you see at a Hendrick or Travis Geisler at a Penske. They had various people kind of doing the different things associated with it. It wasn't one person, so it makes sense that you would put Chris in this role. I think he's going to thrive, and I think he's going to make the organization better. But those are my thoughts.
Well, you've heard Denny say on his podcast that, Chris Gabehart was the last crew chief he'll ever have because he intended to finish his career with them. He had found a guy that was obviously a good fit. And as you suggested, just the mere idea of sort of starting over, especially in this era of the next gen car, driver, crew chief, chemistry, and communication is the difference maker, right? Because all the cars are the same. And so you have to find these little things. So it seems, for a 43-year-old who maybe has, 2-3 years left, to start over essentially and try to rebuild that. It seems like a very daunting task. And, you're like, we haven't heard from Chris Gabehart yet, so we don't know, what some of his motivations were. But, from JGR standpoint, I can understand if you say, hey, Gabehart, you want to move here. And maybe you do that if you're, the team player and you say, yeah, well, this is what the team's asking me to do. But it's also like, man, I couldn't finish this out with Denny for 2 more years or something. Gabehart still seems young. So, is this the right time for him to get off the pit box? I guess it is. He accepted this role. But yeah, there's a lot of just like, man, like this guy was at the top of his game crew chief wise and had a driver who still had, a couple years left, where they could win. And, he obviously has stated goals, try to get to 60 wins, try to get a championship. So it's like, man, I just think for Denny, it's got to be a huge gut punch because now you're looking at this going, man, this is going to be really, really tough. This journey that I've been on just got a whole lot harder.
Yeah, and we have seen, drivers and crew chiefs have quickly adapted. Gabehart and Hamlin's first year together, they went to the Championship 4. And if it weren't for too big of a piece of tape on the front grille during a late pit stop, they might have won the championship. So, and this playoff form and the format and getting in the playoffs or anything like that does lend itself to kind of using some of the regular season to kind of fine tune and work through things a little bit. So it's not an impossible task by any means. But again, when you've already got the best, it's really hard to go down. And this is going to be a big moment for Chris Gale to come over here and step in. I thought it was an interesting stat, and I wrote about this in our news story, was since 2019 when they first started together, Chris Gabehart and Denny Hamlin have combined for the second most wins and the second most laps led. They've made the playoffs every single year, and they've made the championship for 3 of the 6 years. That's a pretty remarkable run.
Yeah, and again, like it's nothing against Chris Gale. It's just the mere thing of like having someone new come in and someone that Denny told reporters say that he doesn't know all that well. Obviously they're in part of the same company. It's not like somebody's coming in from the outside.
They have worked together a couple races in the Xfinity series.
Briefly, but it isn't with the Cup guy coming over.
It isn't much.
They come in from doing double duty.
Sure.
They get in the car. It's not like you're not building that relationship. You're more just getting in and driving fast. But yeah, it's gonna be a storyline going into next year for sure. So I'm sure we'll talk more about it. But certainly a surprise there. One thing that was not a surprise, Jordan, was Ryan Preece finally named to drive the 60 car, the third car for RFK Racing. This is something you had reported in September, I believe, at the start of the playoffs. So no surprise there. But any reaction to that news?
Yeah. This is going to be a really big moment for Ryan Preece. When he got hired at Stewart-Haas Racing, that team was kind of already starting its decline. And so now he is going to an organization that is on the upswing. You look at what Brad has done the last couple of years; he's gotten better and better. Chris Buescher didn't make the playoffs this year, but really should have by all accounts. You look at the stats, and it was like he was right there. Did win a race. Like, this team is capable of being a consistent challenger. This is a big moment for Ryan to prove himself at the Cup Series. He's never had a better opportunity than this. It's going to be interesting to see how he does. Them getting Kroger, people are, sometimes you look at sponsorship deals and you just kind of shrug your shoulders and it's like, whatever, one company for another. What does it really matter? I do think this is one of those sponsorships that do matter, though. You talk to people in the garage and they look at Kroger, they spend a lot of money. They do a lot of brand activation. And that's something that not a lot of companies do necessarily. They really push their drivers out there. And if you are RFK and you want to continue to grow and build, having a partner like this is going to be someone that's going to really help you do that. So I think this is a huge move for them on that front. And you can, the Ryan Preece thing, I get it. I think he's had a familiarity with Kroger, and he's a driver who has shown flashes, and now he has to go prove it.
I actually disagree with you. I don't think this is that big of a moment for Ryan Preece, because I think that the fact that Kroger likes Ryan Preece, I'm not saying it's as much of a bond as like Eric Almirola had with Smithfield, but we've seen where drivers can be just okay, right? And if you have a sponsor who is very fond of you or connected to you or likes what you do for them, you're not necessarily on the hot seat, right? Like, and we could have said, you probably would have said, Ryan Preece getting the ride at Stewart Haas to begin with. Well, this is his last chance. He got to go prove something, right?
Fair.
And it didn't really happen, but yet he ends up in a great opportunity again. So I think there's, listen, I mean, we get caught up a lot in performance and how much performance matters and the on-track results, but what you do off-track in many cases as a driver to connect with your sponsor and to work hard for them can really pay off. So this is a situation where Kroger, had familiarity with Preece, and now he's back with them, and I'm sure they're very excited about it. So, but as you said, I mean, Kroger's a huge sponsorship. They leave behind JTG, which is now rebranded to Hayek. Did I say that right? Hayek.
I'm gonna go with whatever you say.
Hayek.
Don't ask me. I'm bad with names. You know this. I'm terrible with
Hayek
names.
Motorsports, or is it Hayek Racing?
Can I just say the X JTG?
Yes, JTG added one letter and switched the letters, and so instead of JTG, it's HYAK. Gordon Smith, who had come in, what?
Oh, 2000.
No, I was reacting to your facial expression.
Oh, I'm just trying to figure out their name. That's all.
It means go fast.
Yeah,
it's associated with speed in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, correct.
Native American tribes. Or
yes, exactly,
like that.
And it's what Gordon Smith's company is named as well.
Yes, Gordon Smith, this investor who came in and then sort of, I guess, was it fair to say, muscled out Jody and Tad Geschichter? It was their team. They brought him in.
Yeah, it depends on whose side of the fence you're talking to, right? It's interesting. One day that story is going to be told, and I look forward to telling it.
Another part of that, was it known, or was this previously the case that Ernie Cope, the competition director for the team, is now listed as co-owner of the team? I saw that in the news release. That was interesting. That it's, and certainly nice for him that he has a piece of the team. That's very rare for a competition person. Yeah,
and I will say Ernie has had a very, very big role behind the scenes in kind of reforming JTG. Really, you go back to last year, or 2023, excuse me. And Ricky Santos Jr. had a really, really great year. Like, consistently, they're running very solidly, not even including the Daytona 500. Ernie gets a lot of credit for that. Ernie and Gordon are very tight. They've kind of become the two big people over there that are kind of leading things. I'd throw Mike Kelly in that mix as well. So it's really the three of them have really been instrumental in kind of pushing JTG forward. So not surprised that Ernie maybe has an ownership stake. Don't know what degree. But yeah, it's that's their team right now, and it's gonna be interesting to see what they can do, because there was moments in 2023 where they were really, really impressive, and not just on super speedways and stuff like that, just pretty much everywhere.
What other news caught your eye? There were so many announcements. I
mean, Riley Herbst to 2311. We've known that's going to be happening for a while. No surprise.
Was that
there.
less of a surprise than the Priest thing?
what's the good point? Like, we're just waiting at this point. Like, come on,
Yeah.
guys. Like, just seriously, what we doing? I guess the only hang up there was you're kind of wondering about the charter stuff and how that was going to play out. Speaking of charters,
Right.
they've dropped the appeal. The teams dropped their appeal this week, and a lot of people are asking me like, what's going on? What's going to happen? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people know. I think you just got to kind of cool your heels right now and just see how this plays out. You're hearing a lot of different things. I have no idea if any of it's true. We'll see what happens.
Todd Gilliland is switching to the 34 after Michael McDowell left. That's kind of an interesting little move. Daniel Hemrick to the Truck Series, taking Christian Eckes's ride. So he'll be in a winning championship contending team. So that should be great for him to maybe try to rebuild his career. One thing I wanted to ask you about, JGR is lifting. I report on The Athletic that they're lifting the dirt racing restrictions. Now, you have been very outspoken, of course, about drivers doing extracurricular activities and racing and just. Okay.
I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth here.
Okay.
My belief on it is, if I'm a team owner, I'm kind of leaning with Joe Gibbs a little bit. Like, I want to protect my assets. I mean, I'm paying a lot of these guys a lot of money. They're immensely talented. I don't want to lose them, because if they're not in my race car, my team's going to be worse for it. You know, I'm probably going to win less races, may not win championships, et cetera, et cetera. That said, when I have a Christopher Bell come to me or Kyle Larson and say, listen, if I go do this, I feel like I make better. And I thought your story did a really good example of kind of laying out with NASCAR shifting to wet weather tires and ovals, and New Hampshire is a perfect example of that. That's a skill set that you can learn in dirt. And so if I have a Christopher Bell or Tyler Reddick or Kyle Larson or whoever come to me and say, hey, listen, this is something I feel like I need to do. Yes, I'm going to be smart about it. Yes, I'm going to need permission. I'm not going to go. I'm going to pick and choose a little bit. I'm not going to do anything risky. I think you have to be receptive to that, and I think it's a good way to really lift your guys' spirits up too. So I'm in favor of it, as weird as that may sound.
That is weird, because now if they get hurt doing this, you're going to say they shouldn't get a waiver.
Well, but you have to accept that though. Like, if you want to do that, that's fine. Like, but there's two sides to that though. If you want to go do that, and I think it's going to make you better, fine. But if you do get hurt, there are consequences, right? I mean, so you don't get to just do this carte blanche. You have to accept what potentially could happen if you do this and it goes sideways. It could mean you get hurt. It could mean you're out of the race car for a period of time, and then the waiver question comes in. To me, it's a separate thing.
All right. Well, the dichotomy of Jordan Bianchi, the interesting person he is, we can now talk about that on the 12 questions. So for those of you who don't know, each week I ask the same 12 questions to a different race car driver. This is on the Athletic feed as a podcast and the written version, of course, each week. So I think I did, 38, 40 of these or something like that this year.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just going to say, you've got one question from Joey Logano. You have a piece coming out next week, kind of like the best of, right? I mean to ruin it or anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
But the Joey Logano question is so good. Like, I just can't wait for people to go read it in retrospect after him winning the championship.
Yeah. So
Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin it for
no,
you.
that's all right. So we'll just go through it here and we'll both answer the questions. Jordan is really anxious about this I don't understand why.
I need alcohol.
I don't understand. A lot of people out there listening to this podcast they always want to talk about your quirky personality, and then you're saying you don't want to tell people about your personality.
Feels very self-indulgent, and I know people are going to be shocked.
Well, it's off-season content.
I know. I just don't.
I mean,
this can be shocked.
people don't have to listen to it.
I know
they
people
can turn it off right now.
I know you're gonna be shocked, but I'm not really a look at me person. Oh God.
Come on.
I'm not. I don't want. I want my work to speak for itself.
You get in every TV shot
because I'm getting close to get the story.
All right. Okay. All right. All right, listen, here's number one, Jordan. Can't wait to find out some of these things about you. What is currently the number one thing on your bucket list?
Oof. Wow. Just keep doing what I do. Like, that sounds.
That's the number one thing on your bucket list?
I don't have
what you do?
I don't know. I just want to keep being I want to. Yeah, this is where I'm not trying to be cocky or conceited or anything. Like, I just want to keep doing my job at the level I do it at, and I feel like I do it at a very high level. And that is the number one thing for me every year is I wake up every single day, like, what can I do today to be great? And I never am satisfied. I'm never happy. I'm never content. And that's a motivating thing for me. And so for me, when I look at bucket list, I don't have like, I need to do this. I just want to do it all. I want to continue to wake up every day and say, what do I need today to do to be great? And go 100% commit to that. I know it's a really stupid answer, but that's my answer.
Wow, what a life. Well, mine is to go see the Northern Lights. I know that they've drifted down sort of close. We've had these solar storms or whatever recently, and people say, oh, look, check this out.
It's so boring.
That's boring?
Cool, great. Wow, colors, fun. Okay. I don't know.
I mean, I want to go somewhere where I can really see them pop off, like Norway or something like that. And I just think that would be an unbelievable experience. Obviously, there's other places I'd like to travel to as well. I've been to some cool countries, but I've never been to Australia, New Zealand. I'd really like to go check those out.
Way too long of a flight.
This is my answer. You don't have to criticize my answers.
Your list is not your bucket list. No offense, is not really inspiring.
To go see the Northern Lights?
And go to Australia. They got all those like deadly animals. Plus the flight's terrible.
What do you mean deadly animals?
Doesn't Australia have like more dangerous animals than any other country?
I don't know that.
I thought they did, like the snakes and everything else.
Okay, I'm not going to go. I'm talking about going to the cities. I'm not going to go out in the bush on a excursion by myself or something.
Good luck.
Jordan, how much media coverage of NASCAR do you consume?
Oh, tons. Lots. I mean, I would say that if you write or cover NASCAR, I probably am reading and consuming your content. There isn't. Now, I don't necessarily do it in the moment because sometimes I'm working on the similar story and I don't want what someone else wrote to necessarily influence me, especially when it comes to like feature stories and stuff like that. But in terms of news and content or anything, I consume it all. I feel like you have to. I don't feel like you can do our job without having your finger on the pulse of what other people are doing and what people are talking about, because otherwise you're going to be behind.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I never can do enough. Like I listen to as many podcasts as I can. I read as much as I can. I watch videos. Like even if I'm at the track, you know how these scrums are that we have in the media center, where a bunch of drivers come in at once. So you might be over talking to one driver. Then I will try to go watch like another media member's video of an interview with another driver that I missed, because really I view it all like, especially the podcasts and the articles, all that stuff, you're just filling your brain up with what everybody's saying, and then you're able to sort of distill that down to what's a story that needs to be told, or what do we need to talk about here that's an opinion that people have, or whatever it is. The more you can take in, the better, but it just takes a lot of time to do that. Like I try to listen to podcasts on double speed, and I still don't get through all the ones I want to get to every week. Hopefully I can catch up with some in the off season. I mean, like even, there's like a lot of the interview podcasts that I miss, like Kelly Crandall's podcast, Davey Siegel's podcast. They have a lot of episodes with like really interesting people talking on there, but it's not necessarily like the reaction to the last race. So during the season, I'll go listen to the reaction to the last race, and then I'm like, dang, I really want to hear that interview. I didn't have time this week, so I want to go catch up on those, long conversations with people to hear about their backstory. Because again, that helps us understand what to cover.
Especially when you have like a Denny Hamlin's podcast or even BBC to that extent.
Well, those are news making podcasts.
Literally people who are in the middle of it
and
have a perspective that is very unique. And I'm not as on top of the podcast. That is my one weakness, I would say, as you are. I rely on a lot of other people to kind of give me the information or distill, or I go and I'll jump through it like, okay, I need to listen to this and this. But I agree with you. Like, there's just so much content out there. It's a lot, but that's great though. It's better to have too much than too little.
Beyond winning, what is the best way to measure success in racing? That's
a really good question. I've actually had this conversation with some crew chiefs, a lot of crew chiefs lately, because I was kind of the belief that like average finish was, if you finish, top 10 on a regular basis, thereabouts, like that's good. But then some crew chiefs were like, well, with stages though, and track position, you can give up, you can go get stage points in stage 1 and 2, but then you get shuffled out at the end because of track position and everything like that. He goes, I would rather have the stage points necessarily than a 10th place finish. And so you got to be careful on how you look at that. One stat I think is really important, and it's something that I'm really, really paying more and more attention to, average running position. Where are you running mostly throughout the race? Because if you're running in near the front of the field for most races, that's going to stand out to me as like, you got a fast car, you're doing the things you need to do. And even if you don't necessarily have a corresponding finish to that, your average running position will show like, hey, yeah, he ran 7th for that race average, but for whatever reason he finished 17th, and you can still kind of correlate there that there was something there. Stage wins, I think, is another thing. Not just like the fluke, like a guy gets 1 or 2 on a fluke or whatever, but I'm talking, guys who rack them up a lot. That is huge. And I do like lap sled, and you got to be careful with lap sled because you go to places like Martinsville or Bristol, and guys are going to lead 200 laps, and it can really kind of skew the totals a little bit. But I do think lap sled, especially when you get to around above 500, and that's really like, oh, okay, 500 is when the light bulb starts to go off. Like, this guy's they're good. And if you get to 1,000, I think this year we only had one guy, maybe 2 guys get to 1,000. It was a pretty low total. That is like rarefied air. And so lap sled, to some degree, average running position, stage wins, that kind of thing.
Yeah, to me, I'm not really looking at those, honestly, because
really?
I think that those stats are more applicable to the people at the front of the field who, maybe you say, okay, well, he didn't win, but he's running up front. But what about the people who run mid-pack or even back the pack? I think there's still ways to define success for those people. And to me, it's trying to compare what the expectations of your car are, what the speed of your car is, and did you outperform that or not? Obviously, the best way, the easiest way to do that is teammates. If you are outrunning your teammate, you are a successful race car driver, because in theory, you are in the same equipment as them. You have a lot of the same information they do. And if you can outrun them, especially by a considerable amount, you were successful. And then even if you're not winning, your team can't be like, well, we got to get rid of this guy, because they're going to look at the other guy. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
And, this is what just happened, I think, in somewhat with Carson Hocevar, Corey LaJoie, right? Corey LaJoie is stacking his pennies at Spire, right? And you get this young rookie guy that comes in and just starts outrunning him. And all of a sudden, by the middle of the year, they're like, all right, we're moving on, right? And so the teammate thing is a very powerful comparison. Now, what happens if you don't have a teammate? Well, you could compare what cars of a similar budget, what they're doing. Are you outrunning those, that group of cars? Where do you run in that? Or, again, another Hocevar example, right? Let's say he didn't have a teammate. Well, he jumps into a car that was the same car as last year, except he gets better results in that car with the same group, essentially, same team, and outruns it. So you go, well, that's success, right? So I think it's ways to look at it through that way, but mostly comparing what the expectations of your car are and trying to figure that out.
I feel like I agree with you. I feel like we kind of cover the spectrum. Like, mine is kind of more towards the front, like who's really maybe a championship level, and yours is like looking, I don't want to say middle class, if you will, but like, who's going to be in that middle part there and who's excelling. And I think there, I will say in that point, I think you can look at points a little bit too, because, when you're a drive, like I just talked about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and I go back, 2023, like he was around that 15th, 16th in points. And you knew that team was overachieving you could tell by where they were doing every week. And so, yeah, I think I think they're both right.
What is an opinion you have about NASCAR that you don't think is shared by the fans? Boy, I feel like every opinion that you say on this podcast, but...
Wow. I mean, I'm not the one who's continually ripped, so I'm just saying I'm the man of the people. People love me. You want to be smart, and you want to be a smart, educated NASCAR fan, welcome to the team. You want to be the other side, Jeff's your guy over here. I think NASCAR is in a good position. There seems to be, this sport seems a lot of the sky is falling, a lot of Chicken Little. Like, oh my goodness, the racing's bad, this and that. I'm not saying that there's not issues. There are certainly issues. But, we heard so much about the next gen car and how it's bad on short tracks. We talked about in the last episode. I feel like they've made effort to get that better. I do think NASCAR's attempts to make the sport better, I think it's sincere and genuine, and I believe they have a direction. And I think this sport is headed in a different direction. I think it's more competitive than ever. You're seeing teams across the board who, You don't have the same dominance from one driver or one organization that maybe you did in years past. Now, is that a good thing or bad thing? I think it's a good thing. Other people say that's not. But I think on the old way, though, you'd only had one or two teams, and it kind of became boring after a while. I think the racing has been really, really good. We talk about the good race poll a lot. You look at this year, there's a lot of races that rated really, really high. I feel like NASCAR is headed in the right direction. I love what they've done with the schedule. I cannot say this enough. It wasn't too long ago where the schedule was just a snooze fest for a lot of the year, especially during the summer months. They have gotten a lot of the redundancy. They've gotten a lot of some of the tracks that just frankly didn't deserve 2 dates, and they've put in new, fresh stuff there. You say what you will about racing in downtown Chicago, that delivered. It delivered an entertaining event in a major metropolitan area. I'm excited about Mexico City. I like that they're also going to North Wilkesboro and places like that. So I generally am probably more bullish and optimistic about NASCAR's future than other people.
All right. For me, I already feel like the fans. I feel like I'm actually mostly on the fan side. So the one thing that I think continues to surprise people when I say this, and I've said this before, but for all, people really get so upset and angry with NASCAR, but I think one thing that people miss is that NASCAR legitimately cares. The people that run NASCAR, they are racing people. They actually do care. They are listening. Now, they don't always do what some of us hope, or the directions or the rules or whatever. It doesn't always turn out that way, but it doesn't mean that they don't care about it. We have so many conversations with people in NASCAR, and what comes through repeatedly when we're just talking to people at the track. I mean, they're not just checked out, right? Brian France was checked out. Like, did he care? I mean, if he did, you didn't see a lot of evidence of it, right? Like, to me, like
you're right.
Would be at the track a lot, and there was just, I don't know. Like,
I always felt like he had one foot out the door. Or like he wanted to do other things, and you heard it all the time, right? If he wants to go to an NFL team or that kind of thing, it just never felt fully immersed.
Yes, and I think the people now, they are dedicated to trying to make the sport better as they see it. So, yes, again, we might disagree on what the direction is, but they're legitimately trying their best. So I think that's maybe an opinion that people don't necessarily share.
Agree with that.
What is the biggest thing fans don't realize about what you do for a living, Jordan?
Listen, I always say, my grandpa always say, I'm not digging ditches for a living, right? I'm not doing any back-breaking labor, but the hours we put in are pretty extreme. Mm-hmm. And what I do, how I do things, you're never taking a break. I mean, I literally take phone calls. I'll leave important dinners with family or friends or whatever, take all sorts of phone calls. If you're somebody who I need to talk to, I will take your call any time of the day, at any time of the day. It never stops. It is literally 24/7. I am somebody who wakes up in the middle of the night and checks his phone multiple times. Like, it is just ingrained in me. I just wake up naturally to check my phone to make sure that nothing is on fire in the world. It is all consuming. It is a strain on friendships and relationships and everything else. And you make a lot of sacrifices on that. But that's what it is. And I think that's how it has to be. I don't think it can be any other way. And I don't know if people realize it or not. And I'm not asking for any sympathy. So I just want to make sure you guys, I'm all in on it and I'm cool with it.
Yeah, certainly this is what we signed up for. But I think similar vein, you're never off. The way that the job has evolved now with, social media, digital stuff. I mean, when I started in this industry, I was working at NASCAR Scene magazine, and we printed once a week, and we had no website. So, things would happen, and we would say, well, we'll get it in the next issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was nothing we could do about it at the time. Or even early in my newspaper career, right? Like, there was no website, so you just you got to get it in by the deadline, but you didn't have to like stop what you're doing in the middle of lunch or in the middle of a movie or doing something with your kids and just run out and say, I got to do this right now. This just happened. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, oh, well, guess I got some work to do later. But
don't work like that now.
No, it doesn't. And so, I mean, we used to go, when I was in NASCAR Scene, we used to play golf with a lot of the staffers once a week, every Tuesday, because we'd print on Monday afternoon, and then we'd have our meeting for the next issue Wednesday morning, and Tuesday was an off day, and it didn't matter what happened. So we could go play golf for 3-4 hours, and you didn't have to worry about something blowing up, And but obviously now
there are no days off.
Again, like it's now for me, like I really try to, when I'm on vacation, like when I'm off, unlike you, like when we had like the 2-week break, I was off. Like I was like, I don't care if the world's melting down. I'm taking this time off. I am not looking at social media. I'm not looking at my email. I'm not taking phone calls, whatever. I respect you for it, but I need the balance. I need the work-life balance.
Yeah.
You don't have a work-life balance.
No,
offense,
I do respect that you do it. You're a great father, a great husband, and the time that you're able to do that and pull away, I couldn't do that. I just cannot do that. I'm not wired that way. That's who I am. And to quote my favorite movie of all time, this is the business we have chosen.
So a little bit of a mix-up here for the hot topic of the week question and the wildcard question. I've gotten a submission from one of the biggest 12 questions fans, and that is Mr. Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe helps me with some questions in the offseason. He's has some submissions, some suggestions. I think 2 of his made it on this year. Now I can't remember exactly which ones they were. But shout out to Chase for being enthusiastic about these 12 questions and sending in ideas and stuff like that. Landon Castle is another person that's helped me for a long time vet the questions and make sure like they are something a driver would be willing to answer or whatever. Anyway, so there's 2 questions that Chase Briscoe has here. So for the 2 wildcard questions. First thing is, and I don't know if I have a immediate answer for this, but what is the craziest thing you've ever seen at the racetrack that didn't make it on TV?
Crazy? Oh my goodness. Can I be a little vague on this? Just because I don't know. I will say that there's been some recent news and I could see that it was coming. There's been a recent driver crew chief thing, and I could see it coming because I saw how the crew chief was reacting after a race late in the season, and it was very unusual to me. And I started kind of checking around a little bit, and nobody really knew. It was just very odd, and to me, it sent off a light bulb of there's something deeper here going on. And then when the move was later announced, it was like, oh, okay, got it.
Well, there's only one move that's. Are you talking about the move, the Gabehart thing, or is
no,
another?
It's not. It's a different. It's
okay.
a different.
Other than that,
it's a different one. That's not anything to do with Chris Gabehart.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I think everybody was
sorry.
thinking.
No, it's not. I just want to make sure it's not Chris Gabehart, but there was.
That's the craziest thing you've ever seen at a racetrack.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that comes to mind. Like I don't know. Like I don't. What do you got? I don't have anything. Nothing comes to mind.
I would say that now that this doesn't really happen anymore. I thought it was just standard at the time, but now I kind of just realized how unusual this sort of thing was. So, and I'm sure I'll think of someone else that's much crazier or something afterwards. But my mind just goes to stuff that I've seen in the media center. David Poole of the Charlotte Observer, the late David Poole. Early in my career, he was sort of like the dean of the media center, and he would get extremely loud and angry if there was conversations going on, and if it was getting too loud. And he would at times again, imagine someone doing this at the media center now. I can't even I can't even imagine this happening at all.
I've snapped at people in the media center for talking too loud.
Yeah, but this was okay. So anyway, what he would do is, and this happened probably at least once a weekend, honestly, for the people that are around at the time are probably nodding their head listening to this. He would stand up and his face would turn bright freaking red, and he would say, "Everybody, shut the up!" Scream in the media center, alarming, jolting people, because it was so loud. You're like, oh, and the media center would go dead silent for a while. I've
heard this story, and every time I hear this story, it's just
you're like, what?
Yeah.
So, but this was I just think that was just how it is.
Yeah, it's not.
Since he passed away in 2008, maybe something like that.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's ever done that again. I mean, Bob doesn't. You know, can you imagine like, and Bob gets mad, but like imagine if like Bob or Jenna or you or whoever just stood up in the media center and just screamed at everybody.
Well, now it would go viral though.
Yeah,
like somebody would have had a phone on
That's
by
true.
and it would have been caught, and then it would go viral, and then they're like angry NASCAR media member like melts down. Like,
Yeah.
man, I feel really bad. I don't have a good one. I don't know. You see,
There was also a famous story that some of us still talk about where somebody, for whatever reason, in the old Phoenix Media Center, which was in this like dungeon-esque basement,
Yeah.
with scorpions and spiders and all this stuff.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Scorpions?
Big spiders. Yes,
And
they would have to
spiders?
clean
Nope.
scorpions
Hard pass.
out. Yes.
Hard pass.
Before everybody came in the weekend, they'd clean
No.
scorpions out.
No.
For sure. Anyway, so at one race weekend, I want to say this was maybe 07-ish, something like that, 07, 08. For some reason, somebody brought a dog in the media center, one of the workers.
What's wrong
There was
with
like
that?
this dog the whole weekend running around. And at the time, we all had to be plugged. There was no Wi-Fi. We had to be plugged into the internet. And this dog like was disconnecting the internet. You know, he's running through under your desks
What's wrong
with
with
your
that?
legs.
Sounds awesome.
Okay, well, listen.
Dogs are
it-
awesome. I
it
want
didn't
more.
go well.
I am all for
It
dogs
was
in the media
very,
center.
very unprofessional environment to have this dog running around. It was like a golden retriever type dog,
That's
like
even
a big
better.
dog.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I would have like gone and literally bought like 7 hot dogs that they does stand for them and brought them back and like fed them. Like that sounds awesome. We need more dogs in the media
I'm
center.
telling you, it was very distracting. And
Sounds-
I don't understand why.
Why
it
do you hate
happened,
dogs?
but I
Have you
don't-
thought about getting your kids a dog?
Are kids allowed in the media center, by the way? No. Would you ever like let a kid in the
Are they
media center?
working?
Is the dog working?
It's a makes me comfortable.
It's a professional
it's
environment.
a service dog.
All right.
It helps me
It
relax.
wasn't a service dog. The people at the
That's
time
dogs-
weren't talking about
they're-
service dogs.
Dogs should be allowed anywhere. Dogs can go wherever the hell they want. I'm pro dog.
Okay. So for the wild card question, Chase Briscoe says, "What is your wildest dating story?" I cannot even imagine what this would be for you.
This is a family program. Plus,
Okay.
my mom is listening, so
Okay.
we're gonna keep this PG. Boy, we could go so many different directions. There's one story I really, really want to tell, and I just can't. Catch me at the racetrack, though. I will say I once had a blind date leave me halfway through.
in the middle of it.
The middle of the date. I thought it was going well. Like we were sitting there having a drink, and they were having multiple drinks, and any casual observer would be like, "Oh wow, look at those guys! They're interacting well, and like they're into each other, right?" All the telltale signs were there, and I was like, and you're like, "Oh wow, this is going really well, awesome!" And we're like, "Okay, let's go to this other bar." And so I was like, "Okay," so we tab out. We're gonna go to the other bar. We drove separately, so we were gonna meet over there. Went over there. She never showed up.
Wow.
I know, and I'm like,
Any idea why?
yeah,
What
we'll
happened?
get we'll get there. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm like, what did she get hurt? Did I miss her? Did we miscommunicate? Did I do something?
Uh-huh.
And of course you're like, I must have completely misread the situation. I'm like, no, there's no way. Like, been enough dates in my life to know when things are going well, and I can tell you a bad date story here in a second too, or not even worse. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And nothing. And I waited like an hour, and I was walking around. I drove back to the other bar, like all this. I was calling her, by the way, and nothing. Like just nothing. Radio silence.
Whoa.
I was like, oh, all right. And then I called the person who set us up, woke them up, and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, why are you bothering me? I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out. So didn't realize until much, much later, but the person who set us up found out was we had left her where we were having dinner, and we had left, and she had ran into her ex-boyfriend, and they had a really bad breakup, and she like just did not have
Oh,
and
she's like, I don't want to do this.
she just
Oh, so it wasn't you.
it wasn't me, thankfully, but it took me a while. There's many days or weeks there where like I did this bad. I did something really bad. But yeah, I had a blind date just abandon me halfway through the date. I also once had a blind date. Well, this was a blind date because I met her at a bar and we went out for drinks. And she kept postponing it the day of. Like, hey, she called me. She's like, hey, I'm going to be like 30 minutes late, 30 minutes. And it was always these wild excuses. And one of the excuses was her brother had just gotten arrested and she needed to go post bond for him. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay,
Wow.
all right. And then
That's a story.
and then we went and had drinks, and it was like, and this was the opposite. Like there was no connection. And it was like, I want to get the hell out of here as quick as possible. I don't want to be a jerk, but like, let's go on. But she was criticizing me like throughout the entire thing, and like kind of bad mouthing me, like, why do you do this and why do you do this, and I can't believe you're like this, and I was like, okay, why? Like this just needs to end. Like let's just get out of here. Like I don't want to be a jerk, but like, so it was like, I'm like, she's obviously not happy. I'm not having a good time. Like let's let's vamoose. So finally it ends. Thankfully, we walk out, and she's like, hey, I parked over here. Do you wanna you wanna ride with me back to my place, or do you wanna follow me? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like you're inviting me back to, like there was no telltale signs of this, and I'm like, yeah, I parked over here. I'm going home. I'm going home.
Wow. Well, good for you, Jordan.
I'm ready for this. I can't wait
So
for
for
this.
me, this was during my NASCAR scene days. So this would have been 07, 08, 09, probably earlier in the scene days. I remember we were flying to, we were on a connecting flight to Fontana. So flying into the Ontario airport. And there was this woman that I could tell was from the NASCAR industry. I didn't know who she was, but she was sort of like getting harassed by her seatmate. They were right behind me. And I remember it was getting really uncomfortable. Like the guy was being really kind of creepy and weird. And so when we got off the plane, I waited because I waited to see, and the guy was still kind of like following her. And so I go, oh, there you are. I was looking for you. Like, cause
Good for you.
It felt like
Good
she
for
needed,
you.
so then we walked to the baggage claim, and then we stood off, and the guy kind of like just left her alone, So then she gave me her number, which it was, doesn't really happen for me, right? Like back in those days, that didn't happen. So then we like texted a little bit for the week after, and then finally she's like, are you not going to ask me out or something? And I was like, oh, okay. So it made it very clear. Like I was like, wow, okay, this is great. So we went to this sushi place in Birkdale. I can't remember if it's the same one that they have now. What is that cliche?
No, I'm just listening.
Oh.
I'm trying to think of the sushi place.
There's a sushi place in Birkdale. We went, and like, I think I was like so awkward. And
No,
I remember,
I find that hard to believe.
yes, I was so cringe. And
Shocked.
the capper was, I had sushi that I was picking up with chopsticks. I'm usually pretty good with chopsticks. And I dropped the sushi into the soy sauce so bad that the soy sauce splattered all over my shirt. All over my shirt. Like I just had soy sauce black stain on my dress shirt.
She's probably like, at this point, I should just kept talking to the guy on the plane.
Yeah, well. So, anyway, I don't even think, I think there was like a handshake instead of a hug at the end of the night, walking to the car, and then I got ghosted after that when I tried to follow up. So
that sucks.
But well deserved. I mean, if I had been on the other end of that, I would not have wanted to continue that.
I'm not trying to pry,
Okay.
but you said she worked in the industry?
Yeah, but I don't really know what.
Was there times after that you saw her? And
No,
like,
there's like some people that work in the industry. I don't know if it's like various, whether it's, sort of like marketing side or TV compound type people.
There's a lot of different facets.
Where we don't really ever run into them, but they're part of the traveling circus, but you don't really know them or something. Or at least at the time for me, it was like that.
It's still, like I see people on the plane and like, oh, you work in NASCAR. I'm like, I've never seen you before.
Yeah, that's what it was one of those type of things. So I don't think I ever saw her again. It's not like we running into each other.
She might have quit next week, so who knows?
Maybe.
But
I mean,
hey, the bad dates make the good ones all the better.
That's your
Put that in a fortune cookie.
Life. Wise Words for Life by Jordan Bianchi.
You're
Jordan,
welcome.
you grew up in Minneapolis, the suburbs?
Twin Cities. Yep.
In the suburbs?
Yep,
in
suburbs.
Minneapolis or suburbs?
I mean, I grew up on the St. Paul side, but just
Okay.
the Twin Cities is the best way
St.
to.
Paul. All right. What do you like about the place you grew up?
Winters suck in the Twin Cities. If you like to go to Minnesota, don't go in the wintertime. But I will say this, the summertime, it is amazing. Like the openness of downtown Minneapolis and St. Paul, there's great restaurants. You're all along the river, especially. It's beautiful. There's a friend of ours in the industry. He and his wife actually traveled to Minneapolis this summer to go to a Twins game. And they're like, hey, give me some restaurant recommendations. And I gave them a couple. And to this day, like they're still blowing up my phone on the regular, like thanking me for that. They enjoyed it so much. There's great, if you're going to a Twins game or doing those kind of things, there's great places to stay downtown Minneapolis on the river. That's beautiful. There's museums. It's not. I don't know what people's perception of Minneapolis is. Usually, it's cold up there. Yes, it is. Go June, July, August, even maybe a little September. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a great place, and there is such a thing as Minnesota nice. I know most people don't think I'm a nice guy, but I will say most other Minnesotans are actually pretty nice people.
All right.
You grew up everywhere, though. This is
I
going
grew
to be
up
curious.
multiple. Yeah, but I mean, I guess when I think grow up, I think of like elementary school days, sort of thing. I grew up in the Bay Area, Los Altos, California, and it was closer to San Jose, but sort of between San Francisco and San Jose. I just think I don't realize how good I had it with like weather. First of all, I mean, it was like mild all year long. I remember my elementary school, right? Like we had no indoor hallways. Every class open to the outside. I remember it would never rain all summer. It'd be like this sort of mild, nice summer in the 80s. It would never get too hot. And then in the wintertime, it would rain a little bit. It would get kind of dreary at times, but it was never cold. We never had like warm, big puffy jackets or something. And so, now that I've lived in like North Carolina for 10 years with humidity, or Portland for a while with all the rain, or Colorado now for the last 5+ years with all the snow and the cold, and went to high school in Colorado also. I mean, I'm like, oh man, that weather was tough to beat.
So you live in Denver now. Obviously, your parents are there. If you could, ideally, where would you like to raise your girls?
Ooh, that's tough. Where I would like to raise them?
Yeah.
I mean, but then you're talking about schools though, and stuff.
Well,
like that,
let's take the school thing out of it. But in terms of like weather or culture,
I loved Portland. Was my favorite place I ever lived. I loved Portland. Portland was like amazing because you were like an hour and a half from this beautiful coast. You had the mountains there. You had the forest. I mean, the Pacific Northwest. For those of you, I had really never spent much time up there at all until I moved there, and it is so spectacular. It's so gorgeous. All like the coffee shops and the cafes and the people, and just it just feels like it's sort of this it feels sort of like untapped, undiscovered area still in some ways, even though it's obviously a lot of people know about it and live in Seattle and stuff like that. I'm not saying that, but it just felt like there's so many areas where we'd be like, whoa, we can go here. And it was just so, I felt like the whole time I lived in Portland, I felt like I was on vacation the whole 3 years or whatever. And it was great.
I kind of feel that about Charlotte. It seems weird, but you live in Charlotte, you're 2 hours or so away from the mountains. And if you want to go the other way, you're 2.5, 3 hours away from the coast. And I feel like you get a little bit of everything. That's one thing I like about Charlotte.
All right. Boy, this is going to be a real tough one. I do not know how you're going to answer this. If you need time on this one, I'll answer first. What personality trait are you the most proud of?
Hard work. My parents instilled hard work in me. I am not talented. I have like few skills. I'm not good at anything. I have no skill. I have very few skills, but there's just not a lot of things I'm good at in this world. But one thing I have that I am better at anybody else at is hard work. You will not outwork me, period. Hard work will overcome lack of talent, and I'm a perfect example of that.
I mean, I'm not saying that you have lack of talent, but I agree with you on the hard work part of it for sure. You're always working, as we detailed earlier. Personality trait I'm most proud of is empathy.
Oh, you are so
What?
You're good.
You agree?
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Like you are the nicest, most kind-hearted, compassionate person I know.
Wow.
Like you actually, thanks. I look at you and I'm like, can we swear in this episode? Is that okay? We ever sworn before? I'll be fair. I look at you and how you the relationships you have and how good you are to people, and I'm like, man, I feel like an a-hole. God, I feel like an a-hole.
Wow,
you make me
nice.
question all the time of like, man, I wish I was better at that. I really would. Like if I could take something from you, that I could be like, it's your empathy. You are so good and kind-hearted, and you always have everyone else's best interest at heart. Genuinely.
Wow, that's the nice thing you've ever said to me. I don't even know how to react to that. Thank you. For whatever reason, I just seem to always find myself putting myself in other people's shoes and imagining how things are from their perspective and how they must be feeling about this or how things must affect them. And so like, honestly, I think I kind of overdo it at times to my detriment, because it's sometimes taking people's problems
yeah.
and putting them so much on yourself and like imagining how hard that must be for them and all that stuff. And it's a lot to like sort of take on yourself, I guess. But yeah, like I really feel good about myself when I'm helping, whether it's people that are going through a hard time or somebody that's lost somebody or just job struggles or whatever. I'm like, okay, like I can relate to this. I can put myself in your shoes, and I try to understand from their perspective. And so that really sort of guides everything I do in life, I think. So I'm proud of that. And the one driver that said this year that I was like, all right, like who had the same answer was me as it was Ryan Blaney. So I thought that was really cool. But thank you. That was very nice of you. I don't even know how to.
Sincerely, yeah.
Which driver would you least like to be stuck with on an elevator?
So I thought about this question, and I don't really feel like I have bad relations with drivers or people in the industry. Like I try to be very, very professional. When we have news stories or we have to do things, like you call people, you give them heads up, you give them an opportunity to respond. Sometimes you can't always do that because of circumstances, but genuinely you try to do that, and I think that helps maintain relationships. So I don't really have like, there isn't a driver, like, I'm sure there's drivers out there who like hate me, probably all of them, all 36 of them, but I really don't feel like I have a driver where like I dread like, oh, I gotta go talk to this person. I'm afraid to ask, like I'm not afraid to ask questions or interact with them. So I don't know, but I will. That said, I'm gonna give you two stories that give you a little bit of glimpse. One, I actually kind of sort of was stuck in an elevator with a driver this year. Not really stuck, but we were in an elevator. So let's go back to June. Martin Truex Jr. announces he's going to retire.
Okay.
As the Athletic may have reported, he may have broke that story. We may have broke that story before he made his official announcement. Fast forward a couple of weeks from Iowa, we were in Chicago and get in an elevator with Martin. I'm running to this elevator. I don't see anybody in it. And we're in the media center and I'm running in it and Martin Truex Jr.'s in there and there's another person in there as well. And Martin's just kind of leaning against the wall, kind of his head down. He sees me and he kind of does the,
Oh.
And it wasn't like a bad thing. And I say this, a year before, at the banquet in Nashville, he introduced me to the person he was with. Is like, oh, this is Jordan Bianchi. He asked me all the hard questions I never want to ask. He gets really annoying, but he was said in a nice way. You know what I mean? So I was like, so he kind of knew that. So he get in the elevator. He's like, huh. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, and I always will say one thing is you're gonna do what we do, like be upfront. Like if you've got a problem with me, say it. Like I will listen to you. You know, we may not agree, but I will give you the opportunity to have a very private conversation. So I can, if Martin at that point wanted to yell at me or whatever, like I would have been cool with it. I get it. It would have stayed between us and it would have been, no one would have seen the light of day. And then he kind of looks at me and goes, so what are you working on? And I'm chasing news, actually. I said, there's a big story I'm chasing. He goes, oh, go figure. Of course you are. He kind of said it sarcastically, but that was, so that was that.
Yeah. So for me, I look at this question as being stuck in an elevator with a driver would be an opportunity. Even if you have a really bad relationship or there's been clashes, it would be good to be stuck in the elevator. Like Kurt Busch, right? Like for much of his career, we kind of had problems seeing eye to eye on things or had disagreements or even Kevin Harvick at times, right? But like if you're stuck in an elevator, then you can kind of like talk it out and maybe come to an understanding. And I had, clashes with Tony Stewart early in my career. And one day we were at this media event in Dover where he was giving ride-alongs. And after the media event, we chatted for a while and like, it was just us in a room and I never had a problem with him again. Like he understood me after that. He understood where I was coming from and he treated me like gold after that for the rest of his career. So I think once you honestly, like everybody, we're all people and you might get off on the wrong foot coming to, with disagreement or something. But if you hear somebody out, a lot of times you kind of be like, okay, I understand them. So somebody I wouldn't want to be stuck with on an elevator is a driver that I've already like talked to a ton or already know a lot about, or, I'm like, we've already sort of to me, Martin Truex Jr. is a perfect example, right? Like at this point, what are we going to say? He doesn't want to talk. He's been asked everything about his career. He's been asked everything about what he's going to do when he retires. We've already explored all that. If we were stuck on an elevator, he'd be like, all right. He's not going to want to say much. It's going to be like, all right, let's just get off here, So, but even if it was a young driver you don't know well, driver you think is boring, that's great because you get to know them better, and that helps our job. So
Good answer.
that's my. What is a run-in that you've had with a driver that TV or the media missed? Now, like, so for instance, your Kevin Harvick thing was on national TV at Bristol.
Still have never shown the video to anybody. By the
Show
way.
us the video, Jordan.
No.
Play the audio.
No, we're not playing the audio.
So that one doesn't count. Like, so what's a run-in you've had that you're willing to share at least?
Really, I mean, I was gonna share. I screwed this up because the Truex story was actually gonna be for this one.
Oh.
So I really don't have a story per se. Again,
Nobody's yelled at you, or
I'm not saying that, but honestly, those are private conversations.
Okay,
those are private conversations, and honestly, anybody's upset with me and we go somewhere and have a conversation, that's between us. I'm just not going to air that. That is a private moment. F1 weekend last week. There's just another random story. Maybe kind of sort of relates to this. There's the Total Wolf press conference after the manhole cover comes off. I asked him a question. I don't even remember what I said. I said, is this like a black? I said, is this a black eye for Formula One? You know, we knew, you know, everything happened first 8 minutes into this race, and this manhole cover comes off and ruins everything. And he answered the question. He gave a good answer. I felt like he could have answered it more. I would have loved to have asked a follow-up question at the moment, but I didn't get the opportunity. However, a journalist on the other side of the room who apparently had an issue, who's honestly not very professional from all accounts, and has had a bad relation with Toto. They do not get along. Fired off this, kind of did a follow-up question that was kind of aggressive. And so Toto, I forgot what Toto said, but it got played numerous times. And so it went viral. So people thought Toto was going after me because of the question and everything, because they couldn't really discern who asked the other question. And so, but it wasn't me. It was the other guy. And I will say Toto and Mercedes, they all reached out to me afterwards. And they were very professional about it. Like, hey, just want to let you know that wasn't directed towards you or anything like that. We're cool with your question. May not agree with it, but was fine with it. It was a great.
But everybody on the internet thought it was.
Yeah, and everybody thought it was me, and there was some backlash there. And I was like, I didn't do this, like, you know. So that's the only thing I can really think of that would feel comfortable saying. Sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have a couple. And again,
here a while.
I don't know what the statute of limitations is. I guess the one that just comes to mind the most that I feel like has really bothered me for a long time. So in 2008, I think it was 2008 at NASCAR scene, I wrote something that was honestly like really uncalled for about Casey Mears. Basically what I was saying was the guy has gone from ride to ride, and you know, he hadn't performed, and other people had come in and, you know, after him and done much better. And it was the column I wrote was just, it was just unprofessional. I think it was too personal. At the time, I felt like it was my second year in the sport, and I felt like, oh, well, professional athletes, they're used to dealing with criticism, and you can just, like, you know, I'd always been told when I was covering high school sports, like, hey, you got to treat the high school players with kid gloves. You can't criticize them too much because they're amateurs. They're playing for the love of the game. College, you know, they're still kids, but they make high profile mistakes or something like that. Like, it's fair to say, hey, this person missed a play here or whatever. And you know, but you don't want to be too critical. But when you're a professional athlete and, you know, you're getting paid to do this, it's sort of like, hey, you can criticize fairly, freely. And so I just like teed off on Mears and basically, you know, said he sucked. And I did not understand at the time the repercussions of how other drivers see that, how that gets around, how he talks bad about me to other people. I remember at the airport a couple of weeks later, I was returning my rental car and I ran to Scott Speed at the rental car place, and he's like, hey, what'd you do to Casey Mears? And I was like, what? He's like, oh, he's just going around telling everybody, like, you know, what a jerk you are and all this stuff. And I'm like, geez. And I really think that hurt, like, my reputation for 3-4 years after. And maybe some people that had that was their first impression of me as well, like, still might think that. Like, so, and ultimately I went, I had 12 questions with Mears, I don't know, 5 years later or something I think it was at Texas maybe or something. And before we started the questions, I mean, I went in his motorhome and I was just like, hey, I just want to apologize for that. That was really unprofessional. I've always felt bad about that. You know, and like, I've seen him multiple times since then, and, you know, we never had, he was very kind of forgiving. He obviously remembered it. But It's just those things. I think it's those, it's similar to a young driver coming in and thinks they own the track and they're going to be aggressive and push people around. And then you go, I don't know if that's the right way to do it. But at the time you're like, well, this is, this is my track too. And I think I was just like, hey, I can say what I want. This is my space, say what I want. But you have to think through the repercussions, and you don't see the big picture when you're young a lot of times.
I agree on that. And then in this line of work, I feel like you have to play the long game a lot. And sometimes it's not just that question at that moment. Like, yeah, you really want to ask that, but you kind of get there. And so you got to be smart about it, strategic, if you will.
Yep, for sure. I mean, it's a relationship business, and especially in this sport, it'd be different maybe if it was like the NFL or something.
Yeah.
But in this sport where it's the same group of people every week and you're all traveling together and, and it's not even like, a career lasts for a few years. It's like,
guys are around 20 years. Yeah,
right.
for sure.
So if you have bad blood with somebody, it's a long time to not get along. That really affects your job. So you better figure out a way to be fair and professional. I'm not saying you need to kiss their butt at all. But at least
be a pro.
When they read something that you take, they might say, I don't love that, I don't disagree with it, but
don't take cheap.
Honestly, it's not personal.
Yeah, don't make it personal. Don't take cheap shots. And when I say this too is when I criticize people or NASCAR or whoever, I back it up with facts. I try to back it up with facts. And I also will say when I criticize, I will on the other hand, I will try to point out something good to kind of maybe balance it a little bit. I think that's important.
So each week I ask somebody to give me a question for the next person. I was thinking about using the Chase Briscoe questions for this purpose, but instead, I will just ask you a question and you can ask me a question. This can be about anything you want. So, Jordan, my question for you is, you have this weirdly photographic or I don't know, maybe not photographic memory. You have one of the craziest memories for racing facts and history and all this stuff of anybody I know, like borderline savant kind of thing. How far back do you remember watching races like where you can go, oh yeah, this happened in this race? Because from this season, I'm not sure I could go through and name all the winners from this season. Whereas you could go back and if I'm like, what happened in the, who won the 1994 Daytona 500?
Sterling Marlin.
See what I'm saying?
First career win.
Okay, so, but you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
One Daytona the next year too.
Okay, so how did this acquisition of racing history?
It's not just racing. Honestly, okay. It's sports in general. I am obsessed with sports. I love sports. I've always been that way. I read things. I memorize things. So this applies to everything. I remember every little thing about across the board. Also daily life, which makes me a pain in the butt, as people tell me, because get into disagreements like, oh, you did this, this, and this. I'm like, whoa, let's pump the brakes here.
You have the receipts.
And I got the receipts. And I'm like, oh, no, you said this, and then you can't be saying this because I know what you said. And they're like, well, you didn't say that. I'm like, who's got the better memory here? And so, yeah, that gets me in trouble a lot. Like,
I can imagine.
It's a cross I bear. So I just remember thinking, I love history. In general, I love history, American history. I majored in college. And so I feel like once you learn it and you go back, and I don't think you can really appreciate what's going on now unless you know the history of what you're doing. And so I'm always fascinated by it. And there's a lot of great people on social media that do a lot of historic things with NASCAR, and I really take the time to try to watch those. As growing up as a kid, I was always reading books about sports, and so it's just knowledge you gain over the years, and it's just for whatever reason that is just how my memory is.
Very impressive. All right, do you have a question to ask me that we can finish this off? It's not as painful as you thought, right?
Yeah, it's been painful.
Okay. Sorry.
Well, I got two. I actually on my list was biggest regret, but you kind of answered that with the Casey the Mears thing. I don't know if that's your biggest regret, but it seems like that's okay. Yeah. All right. What is something? I'm going to ask you both questions because why not? What is something you want to accomplish as a journalist before you retire?
I don't really. I think just at this point would be longevity. I always sort of admired. Like when I was around early, I mean, you'd still have like Chris Economaki coming into the media centers at some places, and people like that, and he would like hold court and tell old stories and stuff.
That's cool.
And I'm not saying like I had a personal relationship with him, but I'd certainly listen, and you'd be like, wow, that is, I just think institutional knowledge is something that can be very valuable and important. And the people that have the memories of how things were, how things used to be, like, I think that stuff actually can really help in a positive way in the future, because you can help avoid the repeating of mistakes, of history repeating itself. Or you can say, this worked, maybe try this, or this didn't work. And people say, what about this? And you say, no, they tried that before, it didn't work. And I'm not saying that's right all the time, because you have to grow and evolve. But I mean, I covered my first race 20 years ago, February 2004. So if I can make it like another 20 years, and I feel like if I could have like 40 years of NASCAR sort of history and knowledge of sort of seeing it firsthand, I think that longevity could be something that I'd be very proud of. But in terms of like accomplishing, I'm happy with where I'm at. I don't really have, something else that I feel like I haven't done that I wanted to do. I mean, I don't really care about, at this point, I don't even really care about, I used to, when you're younger, you want to be like, oh, I want, I hope people think I'm great or whatever. I don't even really care about that now. Like, I don't care about accolades. I just kind of care about, respect and trying to feel like I can, a lot of people would listen to this and be like, you're not positive. But I feel like where I'm coming from is in a good place, because I care about NASCAR. I care about the sport. And when I'm, offering feedback on the playoffs or something like that, I mean, believe it or not, I actually am coming from a good place, because I think, hey, I think this will make it better than it is now. Again, people don't like to hear that sometimes, but so that was a long answer. So I guess longevity.
I hear what you're saying about the longevity thing. I think you've already accomplished that goal, to be honest with you. You've been around for 20 years. I think you are one of the more respected media members in the media center by your colleagues. And I know, I see it every time I'm with you. People come up to you, they ask your opinion, you give great advice. You have helped my career immensely on so many levels. There are so many other people's careers that you've helped push in the right direction, and they owe you the world. I owe you the world. I think you're already there. I mean, you don't have the 40-year thing, but you have that voice, and you have the institutional knowledge already too, because you've been around for 20 years, and you've been around. You missed the old 1 through 36 championship ride, but you came in 04, so you still had a sense, and so you have that institutional knowledge of having been around at the zenith of 04, 05, and even into 06 a little bit when NASCAR was crazy popular, and the downturn and everything else. I don't think you give yourself enough credit for. I don't think you realize just how, I don't want to say revered, but you're highly respected among your colleagues, and
that makes me uncomfortable, but
that's fine. But it's true. Your opinions or whatever, I don't always agree with, but that's fine. And I do agree that you come from a good place, though. I don't necessarily always agree with it, and I think, but I understand where you're coming from, and I think your perspective is very, very unique. And I think you don't realize how well people in the media center look at you and go, wow, that's Jeff.
Oh, I don't think that's true necessarily. But I mean, I appreciate you saying that. It's very kind of you. I'm really getting uncomfortable with all the praise on this. I will say I do take a lot of pride in trying to be able to help the younger journalists come along or take an interest in them and ask what I can do to help them or be a resource. That is something that probably at this point in my career, that's probably what I get the most satisfaction from, period, is like seeing somebody that I've invested like a lot of time in get an opportunity or improve or something like that. Like, I really, really want to even do more of that. It's really, really important to me too, because I feel like I get sort of like an outsized, amount of kindness from, readers, people, whatever, listeners. And so I don't need it. What I want to do is like take that opportunity and like help shine the light on other people who are also doing good work and need more of like a a break or an opportunity.
That's-
Like that's very important to me. So like if you look at my social media feed, like I really do try to highlight other people's work, and I think other people should too. Like I think that's really important to make sure you're spreading the wealth, giving, hey, you see somebody write a good story, let people know about it, because you might say, well, that's a good story, but it doesn't take away from your feed to show that somebody else is doing good work. And in fact, it only makes your social media feed better, because then you're not just sharing your stuff, but you're sharing an overall perspective of what's going on in the sport, and it makes you more valuable for people to follow, because you are sharing and saying this person had a good podcast, this person wrote a good article. You're trying to help people choose their time wisely. So, sorry, I was long-winded, but that's very important to me.
Damn, you're a good person. You
Stop.
You are such a good person, and I am anything but. I feel so. I see how you do things. I listen to this, and I didn't need to be better.
Well, I mean, look, there's always a chance to you're great with people too. I mean, don't put yourself down like that. But no, I appreciate it. Anyway, well, this was more of a embarrassing thing than it turned out for me to be, because I'm not used to hearing you say nice things. So that's not what I intended. It's easier for me to be
great memory. I say nice things about you all the time.
It's easier for me to be roasted on this podcast than get praise and compliments on this podcast. But
I'm a fair journalist, Jeff. I praise and I rip.
Okay, there you go. Well, hopefully back to roasting next time, because I can't take much more of this kindness. But everyone, if you made it this far, obviously we appreciate you listening to our ramblings on the 12 question stuff. Again, on The Athletic this week, I will be coming out with my favorite answers from the 12 questions driver-wise this season. Thank you to Chase Briscoe as well for his contributions to this episode.
Joey Logano question, man. I'm telling you, it's so good. It's good.
It's fitting. It's fitting.
So good.
Anyway, thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you next time on the Teardown. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.